We are live now.
Okay. Very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, the eminent set of panelists who have taken time to join us for such an important subject, which is on the creator-driven economy. And thank you, viewers, for joining us. I hope you have already subscribed to our FICCI YouTube channel. If not, please do so. You will get a plethora of information and knowledge which is being disseminated by FICCI during this COVID time. And also, I'm sure that you're using your Arogya Setu app while the restrictions are being lifted up by the government and we are going back to the normal. So having said that, the subject, as FICCI, we did a specific discussion on navigating the new normal, and now we are back on the discussion that how this new thing, a creator-driven economy, has come up. We know the COVID has impacted all of us very badly in terms of economy and the other things, but then there are opportunities like this which has come up. There is an internet, and there's innovation, and there are creators who are actually creating stuff and actually coming up with the new avenues how this can contribute towards the growth of our economy, both in domestically as well as in a global way. And we have very well a set of panelists today. We have Shri R. Ramanan, who is the Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission, and Additional Secretary, Niti Aayog, Government of India. We have Mr. Himanshu Kapania, Vice Chairman, ABFRL and Director Telecom, Aditya Birla Management Corporation Private Limited. We have Mr. Dilip Shenoy, who is the Secretary General of FICCI. And we have Mr. Ankur Wariko, who wears many hats, including like entrepreneur, investor, co-founder, and a board member for Nearby.com. And the session is being moderated by a digital media leader from ENY India, Mr. Raghavan. With these words, I welcome you all formally. Over to you, Raghav, to take forward the proceedings of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarika. Thank you very much. And I'm really happy to be here today amongst a very august panel and also all of you to be discussing something that's very close to heart and really something that is growing in the times today, which is the importance of creator economy. In these days, when there is concerns all around, stress on business, on health, one of the things that really is standing out is digital media. Now, digital media in the last couple of weeks have grown by about 87%, and that's humongous in terms of the growth rate. With most of us locked in, most of us stationary, I think the heavy growth in terms of consumption of digital media is something that is a trend that is showing up. And within that, the good part is that that entire trend is being powered by a completely new set of entrepreneurs. In fact, individuals who are creative in nature. These are not technologists so much, and they're not scientists and beyond. They're actually creators who come to the fore and who are trying to entertain, educate, sensitivize all of us. And that economy, which is powered by these creators, is a very huge part of it. Now, the digital video ecosystem in itself, from about 600 billion today, is set to go to about 1,100 billion rupees in the next 5 years. The short video ecosystem, the viral ecosystem, is itself set to be in the next 5 years close to about 480, 500 billion rupees. Now, that is the kind of economic surge that some of these video ecosystems are creating. And the power behind that surge are obviously the creators, the individuals who come on, who put out their creativity, get millions of followers, and have become celebrities overnight. So what used to be a very close set of people who used to be running media has now become a completely democratized setup. And in that context, I'm really, really happy to have a really eminent panel amongst with us and be really talking about this subject at length and also be able to get different perspectives. And I'm really glad to welcome Shri R. Ramanan, who's the Mission Director of Atal Innovation Mission, Additional Secretary of Niti Aayog, happens to be an alumni of IIT Bombay, Harvard Business School, also from Cambridge University. Mr. Ramanan, a very, very warm welcome and really happy to have you here. Also joining us today, Secretary General of FICCI, Mr. Dilip Shenoy, again needs no introduction, has been the Managing Director and CEO of NSDC, the Complete Skills Development Mission, which is looking to reskill more than 400 million people, and also has been heavily involved in the academic alma mater with Harvard Business School, and also doing a lot of great work in terms of skilling around India. So again, Mr. Dilip Shenoy, again, warm welcome. Happy to have you here Look forward to your thoughts. Uh, Mr. Himanshu Kapania, again, welcome. It's good to be catching up again. Uh, Really, it's wonderful that we have a panel with diverse perspective from the government, from the industry. Mr. Kapania is the non-executive director of Vodafone, vice chairman of board of Grasim Industries, has been the managing director of for IDEA, and he has again worked in host of corporate roles, spent more than 21 years working across sectors. Would really be glad to hear your perspectives on this particular topic. Uh, Also joining us, and again, very glad to welcome Ankur Variku, again, a multi-talented individual who has been an internet entrepreneur, is himself a motivational speaker. He's also an investor. He co-founded Nearby and also was a CEO, was also previously the CEO of Groupon India and APAC, MD at Rocket Internet Media, host of things that he has done. Also been a management consultant to see somebody from the fellow brethren. Really happy to have you, Mr. Ankur.
Thank you.
Great, wonderful. So I think with a panel like that, I would probably not spend too much in ado, but just to set the context, I think creator economy is really pushing forward and making a real change in India. So maybe to start with Mr. Ramanan, if I can have your thoughts on how you see the creator economy and also this entire aspect of the entrepreneurship which is powering it. And from all the work you're doing in innovation in Atal Mission, how do you see this from your perspective?
Thank you, Raghav, for the opportunity to participate in this particular webinar, which is not only very necessary for all of us to deliberate on, but it is indeed the need of the day, the need of the hour, if I may say so. First of all, I'd like to thank all the people who are participating in this call, as well as all the audience. I hope everyone is safe and hearty, even in this very, very difficult times, in the safety of your home, and practicing all the safeguards that are required to be practiced under this very difficult times. Raghav, you have raised a very important point, and that is, what is the role of innovation and entrepreneurship, and what does this creation of a new economy or the creation of economy entail? And actually, Atal Innovation Mission was formed just a few years ago in 2016 with this very explicit purpose in mind, and that is, how do we harness a country of 1.3 billion people, where we have more than 65% of our country under 35 years old, and we have what they call as a demographic dividend, one of the envy of many a country. How do you harness this youthful energy to create a nation of job creators instead of just job seekers? So far, whatever systems you have had in place, whether it is the educational system, the university system, has enabled us and allowed us and actually emphasized the focus on getting good marks in a university, in the school, getting into a good university, getting good marks again, getting into a university abroad, and then getting good marks again and joining a large company, whether it is an IBM in the US, a Google, or whether it is TCS or a Wipro or an Infosys here. But the time has come at this point in time, if you want to take this nation forward, we have to create a nation of job creators. Whatever brought us here, and it has brought us well. We have a $180 billion ITS industry, which got created just in the last 10 to 15 years, and which has made a huge impact on the world. And the world has recognized the intellectual capability and horsepower that India brings. But still, most of our innovators and most of our entrepreneurs have thrived, and they have been able to go to places where the ecosystem is supporting them and where they're able to realize their full potential. So you have a Satya Nadella heading Microsoft, a Sundar Pichai heading Google, a Shantanu Narayan heading Adobe, and you have a number of our Indian engineers, teachers, doctors, scientists, everybody flocking to those places where that ecosystem exists. So the whole idea is, how do we create that ecosystem in India? And that is why the Atal Innovation Mission was born out of the idea of the Prime Minister, that how do we galvanize our country into a nation of innovators, entrepreneurs, and job creators. And this is very important because whatever company today is not going to be able to meet the demand of 1.3 billion people. We need to be creating thousands of job creators. But how do you go about doing it? And this COVID-19 crisis has actually accelerated this entire emphasis on innovation and entrepreneurship. Why? Just to allow you to share, the government of India has formed a committee, and I'm part of that committee. I'm actually coordinating that between the Department of Biotechnology, DST, Startup India, Invest India, Atal Innovation Mission, MAITI, as well as NASCOM and CII, and also FICCI people are participating in it. This is a search for solutions that is going to help us address the current crisis, which is an unprecedented crisis, and where we all are stuck at home. Nobody imagined a lockdown of this nature, even in our wildest dreams. We knew there are emergencies. There have been emergencies before where a week or 2 weeks have been the maximum, and still you are about to move about. Here you are locked down. But even in this lockdown phase, we have seen things happening. You're seeing things moving. And that is because technology has made such an impact that today we are leveraging affordable, accessible, available technology to the hilt in order to be able to not only keep the economy running wherever it is possible, but also to kickstart it and imagine new things in the future. And as a result of this, when we launched the search for solutions, what did we find? We found that thousands of startups, we are a nation of startups, as you are aware, we have more than 30,000 startups in our country. But this 30,000 startups, out of which we got more than 2,000 ready to deploy solutions for COVID-19, which are preventive, assistive, or curative in nature. Now you'll think, how did this come about? Did everybody anticipate COVID-19? And it was not. Actually, the startups started pivoting their solutions, whatever they had, to meet the crisis. Because many of the things that we are doing, whether it is in the IoT field, whether it is in software, artificial intelligence, whether we are doing in biotech, agri-tech, everything has come to the rescue in terms of conceiving and deploying solutions which are going to help us in this current crisis. And this came from the startup community. So the investment in the startups by the government of India has been a fantastic return, I would say, in terms of at least the way ahead. The second thing that what it has brought about at this point in time is a tremendous convergence of government, academia, industry, private sector, institutions, venture capitalists, and so on. I have not seen this sort of convergence before, and I would liken it to the Y2K crisis, which happened in 2000. In 2000, what happened? India was already capable. The capability of India was there, but it was not known to the rest of the world. The Y2K crisis brought this knowledge about India's capability, the intellectual horsepower, the academic institutions, and all of that right to the fore. And suddenly the floodgates opened for the IT as well, because the world came to know that this is the power of India. In the same manner, the startup community, which has been little unknown and in the background, and the corporates and the private sector have not really paid as much attention as one should, is suddenly seeing this surge of innovative capability in our startups, and therefore they want to be able to support it. And I think this is a watershed moment where innovation and entrepreneurship can be spurred to a completely different level and helping India create a new economy. And therefore, what I would say, if I before passing it on to the other speakers, the importance and the opportunity that is there that this COVID-19 crisis has created is very well encapsulated by what the Honorable Prime Minister said. The 5 pillars that he talked about. First is a demographic dividend. How do we ensure that our demographic dividend is harnessed, which means we need to be able to create an innovative entrepreneurial capability so that we can spur job creation and job creators. Second is the demand, the pillar of demand. No other country has the type of demand that we have. We are 1.3 billion people. We have 733 districts. We have 600,000 villages. We have only 8 tier 1 cities, and we have 100 smart cities identified. How do we ensure that these 100 smart cities become the hubs of job creation and entrepreneurial ventures so that the challenges that India has can be addressed? And every challenge is an opportunity. The demand is the fact that we still have 22% below the poverty line. We have 44% agri economy base. The demand is we need affordable housing. We need smart villages, smart cities, renewable energy, and so on and so forth. So you have a million challenges in India, which are a million opportunities for job creation and economic creation. The third pillar that he has talked about is technology. We are living in a world where technology is completely helping you to reimagine the world. And therefore, leveraging technology, affordable, accessible, available technology. Technologies like 3D printing doesn't need you to now establish large manufacturing plants. You can do manufacturing in the MSME community. And the MSME community can be spurred to make in India innovation using 3D printing, for instance. Augmented virtual reality can help collaboration across distances. Communication technologies, 5G technologies, wireless technologies is going to bridge the gap of distance and make everything accessible, whether it is rural districts, hilly districts, or coastal districts. And IoT technologies are getting integrated into everything. And therefore, there is a huge opportunity to come up with new solutions, which is very obvious, even when we are talking about personal coverage, personal armors, cleansing, sanitizing agents, detection of, there are Atal tinkering labs, which we have set up. And students from Atal tinkering labs have created contactless doorbells, so that when you go and you go near a doorbell, it senses you. There is a surveillance system which they install, a mini surveillance system. The bell automatically rings and you get alerted. 3D printed masks are being created by tinkering lab students, and that too in grade 6 to grade 12. So the opportunity of fulfilling this demand, leveraging technology, is the third pillar. And the fourth pillar, which he has mentioned, is about how do you ensure this entire, distributed infrastructure? How do you ensure the infrastructure across the country so that there is uniform development? And this has come to stark reality here. The whole urban migration problem is something that we need to avoid in the future. That may be other disasters in the making. So how do we ensure that we prevent that? And that can only happen if our communities develop uniformly across the country. The 115 aspirational districts that we have should uniformly develop. And finally, the economy has to cater to the masses. So you cannot just have a few companies in tier 1 cities growing. You cannot increase the digital divide between the rich and the poor. So you have to enforce, you have to enable the MSME community, which is where 70% of our formal and informal workforce lies, to be able to participate in the economic revolution. And that is a great opportunity because of the demand, because of the supply, and because of the technology that is enabling us to achieve all of that. So with that, I will currently stop. But the government is seized with all of these problems, and they are doing a whole lot of schemes, whole lot of challenges. And Atal Innovation Mission is playing its role through its tinkering labs, through its incubators, through its Atal New India challenges, through its Atal Community Innovation Centers, and through a new initiative called ARISE, which is Applied Research and Innovation for Small Enterprises. There are more details of this that are available on the website, but many, many things are in the offing. And this is the best time for innovators, entrepreneurs to seize this opportunity and to be able to take it forward.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Mr. Raman. And I think you made a few very, very important points. One is you talked about the necessity to have an economy of job creators. And that's what the creative economy is doing. When a creator gets up, posts a video on YouTube or on TikTok or Facebook or wherever he does, he is himself an entrepreneur. He's creating a livelihood for himself, and he's also creating a livelihood for others. Correct. And you spoke about Atal Mission and how it's supporting all those innovations in terms of technology, in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the applied labs, and bringing together these startup ecosystems to make that happen. Absolutely brilliant. I think every creator would be happy to sort of hear that and leverage that at the right point in time. Now, with that kind of an introduction, I think thanks for that. I would probably take that on and probably come back to you, Mr. Himanshu. You've been seeing the evolution of all of this infrastructure as digital grows. Digital is growing on the backdrop of infrastructure which is created. And also this growth in the creators coming on and posting their creative video is on the base of a digital video ecosystem, which has grown very heavily. In fact, the digital video ecosystem is outgrowing even the internet growth from that point of view. So how have you seen this evolution of the creator economy from the old production houses to the new age people coming in? And what do you think is the role of infrastructure behind all of that?
Thank you so much, Raghav. And it's really, I'm feeling honored to be part of this august audience. Before I respond to your question on infrastructure, for the benefit of the audience, I thought let us spend some few minutes to understand how is this creator economy growing and what is the potential of this creator economy. and how is it different from the current economy that we know in the physical world. So when the request came in for participating in the webinar, and did a simple Google search to understand various economies of the world, way back in the early 2000 or the first half of early 2000, the global economy was known as a production economy, where primarily the focus was on the manufacturing side, and great brands were created when the need of the global population was around more and more manufacturing. From there, in the second half of the 20th century, we moved into consumer-based economy, starting where demand from a supply side, we shifted to the demand side. And media and mass media television became the center of demand creation, and consumer replaced labor as the source of this consumer demand. Now we're in the third edge of the economic growth. And I'm a strong believer, while we are starting small, this is going to be as large as the consumer side of the economy, and creator economy is going to grow in leaps and bounds from here. So for the benefit of all the audience, all the viewers, creator economy is the economy created by common people like you and me. It's not about large brands which is focused on selling their, creating demand among consumers, but it is about billions of our people getting together and creating out of ordinary day-to-day life, creating value out of that. So let's look at how is the value being created. While in the consumer side, consumer economy, the focus was mass media, the television. In the creator economy, the focus remains the personalized platforms. Platforms become this. So what we were aware, if you look at consumer economy, which is led by a credit card, the creator economy is led by a computer mouse. That is what is going to be for all of us. The power of creator economy is it does the combination of both production, the same individual produces and same individual consumes, and the transaction is instant on an overall basis. So given this as a background, so let's take a few examples of platform. Whether it is in the search domain, today one would think that the search is free and an individual will put some words, will not create certain values. But if there is an aggregator who were to put all this search together, an example, for example, either a Baidu or a Google, all of this put together create multi-billion for the size of when we aggregate strings of research world of billions of people all put together. So it's the power of all this creator economy is the power of aggregation that these platforms today provide. The same example can be extended to, and you've been alluded to, on towards videos, both in the long format and the short format, which is the order of the day, and we'll take this forward. So today, while entertainment industry dominates, whether it is the musician in me or a filmmaker inside me, but it is expanding, and as Raman talked about, it is expanding to beyond pure entertainment into the diverse fields of health, education, well-being, and safety, technology, and training, and multiple other areas which are unexplored today are opening up, which is allowing people beyond somebody who is an artist or a creative artist in the arts form, but going into all forms of economic activities. So my belief is, in fact, research showed that in 2017 in US, almost 14 to 15 platforms were being used by creator economy, and about 20 million people were involved, generating almost 20 billion US dollars of economy. My belief is from a 20 billion size over the next decade, with the new norm that is created, this economy is bound to touch a trillion, maybe then multi-trillion in terms of size, because the participation from a single country of a 20 million will quickly expand and it'll scale up to billions of people who will start participating in this. Now, given the fact with this background that if we are to get ready of a creator economy, which is in making its baby steps today, but it is going to become extremely large and is going to challenge the consumer economy on an overall basis, and where the world will move from a physical world into the virtual world, infrastructure has to be prepared to be able to handle this scale and size. And that infrastructure, the good benefit is that India has in a digital form of infrastructure has very large has been created over the last 3 years. I'm here referring to the 4G infrastructure, and this is the domain that I have worked closely for a period of 2 decades. And 4G infrastructure in this country, while we were behind most developed countries, but by the time we chose to make investments, and the telecom operators put together a major investment of close to 6 lakh crores of 4G infrastructure, both in spectrum and laying out the infrastructure, not in the urban markets, but deep rural, touching 5,50,000, and raising capacities from almost zills to a level of 300 petabytes a day, which is second largest in the world, only after China. So in form of digital infrastructure, which will allow all people across the cross-section to participate in the digital economy, it is definitely available. However, you just don't need connectivity access. You also need, as I mentioned, personalized platforms. And that is, you have been repeatedly talking about it, Raghav, availability of platforms in the form of YouTube or tic-tac-toe. And it is where my belief is that India will need multiple more platforms. What is available in China, what's available in US, India will need a lot of these platforms for all of individuals who have to move away from their present jobs, working for a corporate, working for MSc, and turning into entrepreneurs themselves. For them to be able to move towards this new role, they would need to be able to straddle across multiple platforms and need multiple monetization models if this economy has to go from few billions into trillions in terms of overall size. And for this, we look forward to the Competition Act to be able to encourage more competition, more platforms be given, policy to be quite seamless, and contracts which are encouraging the producers, the creators to be able to get a larger share of the monetization. So rather than few sharing, it is the whole game has to move towards how billions of people can make their livelihood out of this creator economy. With this, I hand it back to you.
Thank you. As you should mention, Himanshu, you not only set the context in terms of how this entire thing is evolved, but you actually enlarge the vision of what is creator economy beyond video, beyond digital platforms, into education, into health, and many other sectors of how this is being influencing the entire thing. So I think this is really, really wonderful. Thank you for that context. And taking out from there, now, we were talking about an economy where an individual who has creative talent comes on and, like Mr. Himanshu said, expresses himself in multiple folds. It could be entertainment, could be education, could be health, but uses digital platforms, uses digital infrastructure to reach out to a completely wide audience. And again, like you said, Mr. Kapania, it's a global phenomenon now. I can be sitting in any corner of the world and be reaching out to an entire audience, and which is why many of our creators have followings of a few tens of millions across the world from that point of view. So this is really important. And that's a good point to also bring in, Ankur, you've been all of this, right? You've done digital, you've set up companies, you've grown companies in digital, you've seen this ecosystem, this new age ecosystem grow. You also are somebody, as an individual who have been entrepreneur, who has set up things and grown. From the late 2000s and beyond, in the last decade to now, when you see, I mean, we saw the startups coming up and so on and so forth. Now, when you see an individual just holding a mobile camera in front of him and earning a few lakhs of rupees a month and getting millions of followers, so how do you see that economy? And what do you see about its future, on how it needs to sort of grow, and for the individual and for the community at large?
Thank you, Raghav, for the question. Lovely thoughts coming in from the panelists. I'm just in awe of how much I have to consume personally to get up to speed. I've been very privileged to be in the entrepreneurial setup for the last 11 years, learned a lot, seen a complete change from what India was in 2009 when it came to digital economy, or rather the lack of it back then, to what it is today, where it's booming, it's mushrooming, and it's creating these epicenters which are beyond the top cities that you and I stay in and have lived in. And it's gone beyond the boundaries of what I would call the elite India class to India B and India C. And then, in a true sense, democratized content, democratized the monetization of this content, democratized the distribution of this content, and democratized the consumption of this content. And that is the power of what India as a nation is, and its value system in the first place itself. Nothing of what happened seemed unnatural to us because we are the world's largest democracy. It's how we have shaped ourselves up in the last 70 odd years. And when this happened, it seemed like a very natural shift. And I remember making this comment almost a couple of years back. And there was a time when I think all of us would remember when Facebook bought WhatsApp for $18 billion. And WhatsApp was a company comprising 55 engineers. That was it. That was the company. And sometime last year or sometime before that, I'd made the remark that we're not far away from the world's first one-man billion-dollar company.
Right.
We're not far away from a company comprising just one individual and becoming a unicorn or $1 billion in how it's classically called. And that's the power that technology has given. It's the power of the masses and the crowds, which India is benefited with. It's the power of the democracy that we lie in, where we are one of the youngest countries in the world. And a combination thereof, which is distribution and infrastructure led by, of course, the telecom expansion that's happened recently, the youth and the natural demographic dividend that the country rests on. And what I genuinely believe has always resided within us, which is the art of presenting our art. We are a artsy, creative, colorful, vibrant, expressive culture by definition. We have always had songs in our movies. We've always had song and dance in our culture. We've been raised on storytelling. And that has manifested itself in multiple forms, as Mr. Campania said, whether it's education. We've had teachers who've made the entire joy of going to school so much more because of the way that they presented themselves. We've had teachers who made complex subjects really easy. We've had artists and philosophers who dumbed down things because they were just so good with their art. And now, for the first time, with the combination of technology and the infrastructure, with the fact that there is an entire generation of hundreds and millions of Indians whose first default was the internet. All of us on this panel, we grew into the internet. We were not born in it. We adapted ourselves to it. We were not born into Google or WhatsApp or Facebook or anything like that. We drew into it. But our kids, for them, it's the default. For them to have a conversation with Alexa and to have a conversation with Google and to actually never have to even type, but just speak out what you want to search and get an answer. That's default. Voice is such a big enabler, and that just exploded. And I feel just very privileged that we are in the middle of all of this, where I genuinely am such a positive optimist on the next 10, 20, 30 years for this country with a combination of all these things. And the fact that creation has become democratized. There is no one who controls it. There is no one who passes any jurisdiction on it. There are checks and balances where people opt in, opt out basis what they want. And we will all have a choice on whether we want to align ourselves to a certain platform or not. But at the end of it, we function like a democracy, and that's who we truly are as a nation. And it's wonderful that value system and that fabric is now manifesting itself into what possibly, in my opinion, is the next big economic wave that the country will see.
Absolutely, Ankur. That's inspirational, because I think every creator who's sort of looking at it would hear about what you're saying with a lot of interest, because the fact that this is a one man can create $1 billion enterprise is a dream. Is a dream that every other creator who's stepping into this is trying to do. And just on this audience, I mean, there are so many diverse set of creators. If you look across digital platforms, there is somebody who just is opening a soda bottle and he has created millions of followers. There is somebody who is just a singer on the street, somebody doing some stunts on the bike. I mean, there are so many different skills at play, and all of these skills are in display in mass in the digital media, and that's what is creating interest among users and creating this entire thing. And which is again, Mr. Dilip, again, great to have you here. And this range of skills, and you've been somebody who has seen the entire skills mission, reskilling 400 million plus people. When you see Indians come up with such diverse skills, such creativity, and come on to and really get so many million followers on video, I'm sure it will not surprise you. But how do you see this creative skills being expressed in digital platforms, earning followers, earning money, growing, and mushrooming in the next few years?
Yeah, Raghav, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Ramanan and Himanshu and Ankur, for those excellent comments. I just like to also, like Himanshu said, just pause back, right? And even first give you 6 quick examples of where people had to reskill to meet the demands of COVID. Ramanan talked about the startups pivoting to actually, create a lot of applications for preventive, assistive and curative issues there. But I'll just give you 6 quick examples. Textile companies who made shirts and pants actually had to pivot to make protective equipment. Small tailoring outfits pivoted to make face masks, even including the, the people who are in the handicraft space. Alcohol companies started producing sanitizer, okay? Auto component guys went into ventilators and automotive guys went into ventilators, right? There's an early example where auto component guys went into LED bulbs. So it's not only pivoting and creating in the digital space, but also in the physical space. And there are many, many more examples, but I just thought I'll take 6. The second thing, if you look at what has actually happened in the service industry broadly, this industry has been greatly impacted, much more than production, right? Because essential commodities and things and all went, but this was completely closed. So they had to actually find a way to open up, and the only way to do opening up was digitally. And 3 things actually happened in November there. In November, and if the Internet and Mobile Association data is correct, for the first time, we actually had rural internet penetration in terms of numbers 10% more than urban internet penetration. So, 227 million versus 205 million. And for the second thing, for the first time, over 5 years, we crossed 500 million users, above 5 years. So these 2 things which actually happened then also created, and digital was already growing in the past. So if you say the E&Y FICCI report which we did, it talked about digital doubling last year, and outpacing and only behind TV and print in terms of the media space. So this is what happened. Now, if you look at different sectors of the economy, you look at conferencing, the one which you're in. I mean, Cisco, WebEx, or Skype was the de facto thing, and then you had Zoom, overcome, and then you have Indian platforms, actually Zoho also coming up, and so the people are creating these platforms where we can interact, and most of us, right, we have to reskill ourselves of how to even participate in Zoom, whether it is connecting, whether it is putting ourselves on mute. And I liked Ankur's point about people who were born into Google and WhatsApp have this, but we were not born into the same. None of us are born into Zoom or WebEx. I mean, the multitude of platforms that are there, and we have to get accustomed to them. The second thing is gyms, spas, saloons were all closed. So, you have a CureFit, which actually does something there where, you can, and then they need content. So they are creating a million creators. In fact, there's a possibility to create 1 billion creators who actually put in all sorts of things. Doctors, hospitals were going in, right? So you had to create, and and Ramanan, I thought he would touch upon that, of how this India Stack is actually creating digital diagnostics and digital telemedicine, and we are actually, completely transformed. That means all doctors, all people have to relearn and reimagine how they deliver medicine. They've got to be able to read digital ECGs, digital readings, got to be able to come online. So there, again, they have to actually, then you take people who are in the creative arts, singers, right? Actors, they have started, and not necessarily the big ones. We read about what Salman or others are doing there, but the other people, unknown people, what like Ankur said, who have actually posted videos and are pitching. Well, people want to learn dance. Okay, you just go into YouTube and you just search for number of dance programs. You'll be surprised. I think last I saw it was like 2 million some programs that you could choose with, and I am mind-boggling. Similarly, learn how to sing, and these are all people who created this going forward. And TV programs. I don't know if you follow Hassan Minhaj, right? Just to give you an example, right? He has to do his whole thing using creative backdrops and film it in isolation, and then recreate a whole kind of a scenario and then communicate with us. So the entire thing, the production crews or TV programs, today you don't have to go into the studios. You can connect via Skype. So someone has to learn how to manage multiple connectivities and get it into the studio and broadcast. So in each segment, the skilling element goes in. Now saloons are not open. So great, people who do nails or people who do makeup, they're creating videos and they're teaching people, and then they're creating a following for themselves. Concerts, you could not see Cats for whatever you want, but Cats was available free online, or whether you take any other of the great musicals. You look at the India International Center, right? They're putting things up on the net. So cultural societies, and that means that someone in the organization has to reskill him or herself to be able to be digitally active, to be able to refresh content every day. Then digital marketing. The numbers of digital marketing as a profession was not known 6 years ago or 7 years ago, right? It never came up anyway, right? Okay. Actually, it's 8 years ago. But now in today's day, digital marketing skills is probably the #1 skill that is required going forward. So if you see each activity within the thing, 160 crore kids, students have gone online. Okay, schools are closed. So then what you're doing, you're creating an e-Pathshala, you're creating one channel for one class. That means people have to create that digital content. We need to actually create that activity going forward. Teachers, I mean, my wife teaches in a university. She never knew about Zoom. The students never knew about Zoom. How do you do Vivas online? How do you give a questionnaire? Those guys write the answer, they scan it, they make it into a PDF, send it back. You correct it. You have to open the PDF, make your comments, and send it back to them. All these are skills. We take it for granted. The younger generation takes it for granted. But I didn't know that. I mean, I just learned Adobe because I'm getting PDF documents. I have to open them, make my comments, recreate a PDF, and send it back. So these are all skills that we are learning. And actually, what is happening in this time, a lot of people who are, some of us have to actually work 26/7 because we might have to be in 2 VCs at the same time, right? But others have spare time and they're using it to learn skills, and that's again creating a creative economy. And I really like this thought. Earlier we thought, India would be a developed economy if we had X number of people in the top Fortune 500. Imagine if 1 billion people, right, had a capability to become $1 billion enterprise. It's unimaginable. And I think that's a very interesting concept to take forward. and it rests on building digital and creative skills. I like the comment about we are a nation of storytellers, right? How do we actually, create an Indian ethos? We had in Hindi comics, there was only one, regional comics only one. I mean, people, creative guys can create online comics, online communication. So it is an unlimited opportunity. Everybody on this call or everybody listening to this has the ability to dream of actually becoming that $1 billion or $1 billion company. And that's the power of the creative economy.
Absolutely, Dilip. I think that's again fantastic because you demonstrated how a bit of skilling, a bit of digital understanding can really power oneself in this new age and try and create something that is of huge value. And if there are millions of people who are going to reskill them, adapt, and get across, then I mean, as an economy, we are going to be a really, really powerful force. So this is really, really important. And thanks for that particular thing. Now, what I want to do is probably throw open this panel and I want to touch upon a few critical topics within this entire creator economy, whether it is creative people creating content or like Dilip said, it could be a host of other guys. It could be educationists. It could be singers. It could be entrepreneurs creating content for that particular matter. Now, one of the things which is important for the growth of this entire economy is how much does a creator commercially also benefit, and in doing so, how much does the entire ecosystem also commercially benefit. So I just want to throw open this question. Now, we've heard umpteen examples of advertisers coming on, somebody putting something on TikTok, getting about 14 billion views, an Indian platform like Mitron, for example, getting 50 lakh plus downloads in the last few weeks, advertisers jumping onto many other places now. So advertising is one source of income. The other is this entire part that Dilip also mentioned, where the education is going online, skills are going online, and they are subscribing, paying money, and learning something. So subscription is another form of income. But how do you see, and it's, Himanshu also mentioned it is nascent at this point in time, but it is growing, right? Now, couple of questions. A, how do you see the economic rewards for a creator coming through? And what are your perspectives on how that will change over a period of time? And what interventions would that need? Happy to sort of take anybody's thoughts on that particular topic.
Yeah, if I may answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Raghav, I would like to stress on two things. One is, for a country like India, a creator economy is only possible if you have innovations being created, not only for the good of the economy, but also for the good of the society. And unless you have a strong combination of social innovation and commercial innovation, it's not going to address many of the problems that we have. We have, like I said, 733 districts and 600,000 villages. And so how do you take the power of innovation to the masses, and how do they benefit from it? And how do you enable creation of livelihoods through the platform-based creator economy that Himanshu so eloquently brought out? And that's a very powerful way of enabling innovation and entrepreneurship across places where it's most important. Otherwise, you won't be able to carry this country along, and you'll only increase the digital divide and the economic divide that the country has. So one of the things that we have been doing is how do we ensure that there are hundreds of community innovation centers across the country, which will be focusing on not only bringing the benefits of innovation to the local communities. Now, for example, if you have a fishing industry in the coastal district, how do you promote innovation entrepreneurship for the fishing industry? It was amazing for me to see an innovation by one of the school kids, very bright kid. They created a fishing net, which was an IoT-based fishing net with a surveillance equipment attached to it. And the net opens up, or it releases the fish, depending on whether the fish are small fish, young fish, or whether it is the older fish. Now, how does it do it? you take a photograph of the fish, you have an artificial intelligence system on which you run that, and you see whether the fish of that nature, whether it is a cod fish or whether it is some other fish, through AI, you're able to distinguish between the size of the fish and because different fish have different sizes for the small fish and the big fish. Now, what this innovation is doing is creating an ecological balance in being able to protect the small fish and letting open the net and only capturing the big fish and then passing it on to the fishing industry. And then, of course, you have e-commerce and how do you enable cutting out the middleman and being able to get this fisherman the best deal to be able to digitize through a digitally enabled platform for supply chain and payment systems and so on. If you take the Goa industry, there is a shipbuilding industry, there is a tourist industry. How do you ensure local community innovation for that? So the economy, the creator economy, has to factor the various needs of local communities. And therefore, we are setting up, for example, hundreds of Atal community innovation centers only in underserved regions of the country, so that you are actually boosting the creator economy for all these people, whether they are in agri-tech, if you're in a tribal district, how do you ensure water management, electricity management, gas delivery? I mean, that is a big problem in hilly districts. In Sikkim, people actually ran into a problem where because of some landslides and so on, they were not able to provide gas cylinders to many of the people, and they were all suffering. So how do you address issues like that? And one person came up with a very innovative solution for addressing this from one of the startups. So I think there is a huge opportunity for just looking at the problems that are there in and around the community and creating solutions which will drive economy as well as it will drive a social benefit, which is very important. And the other thing that I want to say is, when we talk about all this, how do you create an innovative thinking and innovative mindset in our schools, our universities? It is not just giving skills. Skills is very important. They should have all the latest skills, but you have to convert their mindset, which has been a rote learning mindset in our schools and universities, to a problem-solving innovative mindset. And I have to share with you how excited I am about this Adult Tinkering Labs. We have now implemented 5,000 tinkering labs across the country, and 2.5 million students are engaging themselves from grade 6 to grade 12 in actually innovating using do-it-yourself technologies on 3D printing, robotics, and so on. In the last tinkering marathon we ran, we had 50,000 students participating in a challenge, and 8,000 actual innovations. I'm not talking of paper innovations or some essay on that and so on. Actual prototype innovations were created where teams of 4 people. And in those 4 people, you had a technical architect, you had a leader, you had a communication person, and you had a financial expert who will say that, what is the financial viability of this innovation and so on. And they all gave their entries and we selected the top 200. I would say these top 200 were of such a nature that we have a lot of corporate partners today for Adult Tinkering Labs. Many large corporates like IBM, Dell, and so on are supporting student entrepreneurship and student innovation programs for school students. I'm not talking of university students, right? And they were amazed at the quality of innovation, and they said, they volunteered, that we will take these innovations and convert them into commercially deployable products with the help of our own senior people, and the IP will still rest with the young student, but we will transform this into a product because we see the potential for a product. And that is what, I think Dr. Himanshu referred, that how do you enable 1 billion people to start innovating, providing platforms like these tinkering labs, or providing platform-driven, innovative livelihoods, so that many people can participate and they become the creators of new innovations that have both a commercial impact as well as a social impact.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Raman. So you made again a very interesting point about the fact that it's not just advertising, subscription, those income, but if you innovate and solve social problems, and the government is providing the labs, the ability to take that innovation into a commercial setup. So creators who are looking at marrying social problems with their creative narrative will find a lot more avenues to sort of monitor.
One of the best examples of this is the Khan Academy. The Khan Academy came out of a completely social intent, not even a social intent, a personal intent of Salman Khan to be able to help his nephew or niece in understanding math. And out of that came the YouTube phenomenon, and out of that came a huge Khan Academy. And today, every big company, whether it is Google or Microsoft, are falling over themselves to support his academy. So the money will follow when there is a huge positive social impact. And that is what the point that I was making, that social innovation will automatically get great support, and that will in turn spur new livelihoods and so on.
Correct. And that's a perspective which is very important for a creator. Now, with your permission, I know we are running out of time, but we have seen huge interest from the audience. There are multiple questions streaming in. If it is fine with you, I might probably take a couple of questions from them. We might extend by a few minutes if that's okay with all of you. I know all of you have packed schedules, so I'll try to keep it optimal. So one of the questions that I'm seeing...
Raghav, I just want to make quick comments on the commercial aspect, because there's a lot of passion behind that.
Go ahead.
To me, I'm looking at this as a big opportunity for economy of our country to revive. I'm a strong believer that digital economy, which is currently about 7 to 8% of an Indian economy, and is at the level of $200 billion, is poised to reach a 1 trillion and fulfill Prime Minister's dream of a 5 trillion. In fact, it is going to be digital, which is going to lead the way there. And while he's put up 5 years time period, it is, my belief is if we get our act together on digital side, get our act together on the creator economy side, we can actually get to $1 trillion. And it's a document which will be created by FICCI on how to reach $1 trillion digital economy and creator economy and digital economy combined together can actually help us to grow. So that's why I'm extremely important for us to spend another minute on this. How do we commercialize this aspect of this creative economy? And you mentioned whether advertising or subscription-based model, but I'm not going to dwell so much on that part of it. But what I want to just, there is what Ankur mentioned is going to be celebrity-based success. So there is going to be an individual who's going to earn $1 billion. And I'm not going to focus on this because he knows how to be able to extract that billion. But I am focused on this rural housewife, okay, who has got passion and the desire, and the reason she puts up her video onto TikTok too is not for the money but for the sheer passion about it. And how do we make sure that to start with, we get an incremental 1,000 rupees for being able to put up that passion? And that is the way you say, the minute we're going to demonetize and finally democratize this commercial aspect, this whole game will change. It's great to have few people getting 1 million followers, but my focus of commercial is how do we get somebody who's got 5,000 followers to 50,000 followers, and how do they make money? And minute we solve this problem, okay, this economy is going to mushroom and has to grow at rates which is unbelievable levels. And that is why it's important to segment this economy in the right way. It is important for us, extremely important to be able to get that this economy is going to get will be overcome. This will be highly diverse by nature, because the language issues will get sorted out, because this is where our hundreds of languages, and there's a huge demand of being able to solve problems and get communities together for hundreds of different cultures there. So it will help us solve this, and the demand is going to be on towards, example is in audio video creation, as Ramana talked about Khan Academy, which is great for well-to-do students. But what about people in the tribal area? How do they get their education, not in the written form, but in the audiovisual form, and that is where the creation will be quite local rather than on a universal or a central platform. So it will be a completely distributed model. And in this distributed model, we have to find solutions for these platforms which attract a 5,000 or a 50,000 or a 500,000 people for their unique passion, for the unique skills that they are sharing with the crowd, and how do we monetize that. And to us, this is extremely important, that we need to find solution to that, and that is where the role of policy is also extremely important. That the Contract Act, the Contract Act needs to get much more strongly executed. The Privacy Acts and labels, because this is where the Privacy Act will play an extremely important role, given the fact that there is something that has been created by somebody in deep interior who don't have wherewithal to be able to fight. And that is where our ecosystem, our governments, our state governments, our local municipal corporations have to support this economy. Then this economy is going to really thrive and take it to a completely different level. I think it's extremely important. So just like, I just want to give one example on healthcare. So while it is extreme, the success of healthcare is given by examples of how doctors are sharing their specialist skills with somebody who's really sick. But that is not what the healthcare is going to grow by multiple levels. It is the need for proactive healthcare, and that is where well-being and fitness is, because in the post-COVID era is a much larger domain. And that is where not the specialists, but it's the general people who will participate and be able to teach the world. And when the general people teach the world yoga, when the general people teach the world well-being, when they teach fitness, how do we make sure that they get properly compensated for the effort that they're being put in? So it's important for us to be able to debate this topic and make sure that this economy thrives, because that will encourage lots of people who got unique skills, and those skills which is relevant in a particular segment, in a particular society, in a particular area or region, and that they should be compensated for that.
Absolutely, Mr. Kapani. I think you've made a very important point in terms of the rural being empowered. 150,000 plus jobs being created for the youth in the rural economy, the housewife coming to the fore, women coming to the fore, and how can policy support all of that? Thank you for that. And I'm very much aware that we are running over time. Dilip, in particular, I know you have multiple other things to attend. I would feel it's a crime without taking at least one odd question from what the audience is showering us here today. One of the important things being asked is, and I'd probably use that to wind this discussion up also, but I want to throw those two questions which are very importantly coming up. One is, the creators are asking, does it matter whether the platform is from India or not? Because the creators are from India, the social impact is for India. So that's a critical question. Important to know your views. And the other question about the fact that this entire debate, there are a couple of platforms now at the creators are in the discussions about rights, plagiarism, content moderation in these platforms, and so on and so forth. So how do we moderate content and the impact being in India versus the platform being in India? Any thoughts on how do you see these differentiations?
Raghav, to me?
Yes, if you can.
Okay. So first of all, I think in the context of this discussion, for each creator, try and choose the platform that can give you the greatest value for your whatever you add to the platform, right? Irrespective of where it is located, right? Okay. So that was my very short answer to that question. The second one I'll just leave for the panel, and anybody can have a very different view on my answer to the first question. I just thought I'll take that. Okay.
No, that's a good one. That's a good one. And Ankur, in terms of this entire debate about content moderation, plagiarism, rights of individuals who posted on an AWOD platform, how do you see that happening?
Look, there has to be checks and balances, and the platforms, we will have to give them credit for being on top of this. It's something that they recognize. It's something that they're constantly working towards. It's not a trivial problem to fix. And whether it's fake news, whether it's plagiarism, whether it's copyright issues, all of those are very vivid problems that everyone recognizes, and we have the best talent globally working towards it. I wouldn't worry much about that because these are progressive loops of evolution that take care of themselves as we move along. I think the more important question was to which Dilip responded that, which platform would you consider and why? And that's something that, of course, is a conversation.
Great. So thank you very much. I know this is a very short time for a topic like this, and there are many, many perspectives, and to have an eminent panel like this, but there are, I think, 4 or 5 very important themes that have emerged. One about how this is becoming almost 500 billion rupees in the next few years. Himanshu talked about 20 billion growing globally to about $1 trillion. So it is making huge economic impact. Second, 150,000 jobs being created just on the creator economy, and how the government is powering all of that with the innovation labs, the entire Atal mission, and so on and so forth, and the entire set of support that is being given there. That is also a brilliant point that has come up. The other part, again, like Dilip said, about how to sort of look at it in terms of what maximizes value for you as a creator. And the other point which was made is, if you marry social innovation with content, then the economic revenue streams open up very widely. And the last part about how rural is being empowered by this entire movement, how youth are being empowered, women are coming to the front just because of this creator economy. Some very fabulous thoughts. Can't thank you all enough for spending your time and, in fact, taking extra minutes. In fact, the slew of questions coming from the audience is testimony to the fact that how they're intrigued by this dialogue. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Ramanan, Mr. Kapania, Dilip, and also Ankur for joining us. Look forward to many more sessions like this from FICCI, where we are looking at very different important topics. And thank you very much for being a part of this.
Thank you. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Ramanan. Thank you, Himanshu. And thank you, Ankur. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarika and team. Great job.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.